Hello, everyone, and a very warm welcome to another episode of the Talk Room series of podcasts. In this episode, we examine the question of how to be your best self. We do that by discussing mental health and well-being and how this applies to people's daily lives. For those who have yet to see any of our previous podcasts, I'd like to introduce my co-presenter, Ian. Ian is a senior accredited member of the National Counselling and Psychotherapy Society and the founder of Hope Therapy and Counselling Services. So a warm welcome to you, Ian.
Thank you, Wendy. Thank you. And for those people that haven't met you before, you are a highly experienced CBT psychotherapist. You're working in private practice and have been involved in the field of mental health and well-being for well over 30 years now. So a very warm welcome to you. And today we're going to be talking about the really important subject of couples counselling.
Yes, thank you, Ian. And how about we start by asking some of these questions? So could you tell us a little bit more exactly what is couples counselling and when someone might use a couples counsellor?
Yeah, of course. So thank you for that. And really important question. So couples counselling or therapy, sometimes referred to as marriage counselling, sometimes referred to as relationship counselling, is a type of counselling. It's a type of therapy that helps partners in a relationship improve their relationship. And the primary goal is often to enhance things like communication, to resolve some form of conflict, to strengthen the emotional connection between partners. Essentially, it's about helping couples just to navigate through challenges that they may have and to work towards a healthier and a more fulfilling relationship with their partner. In terms of when people access couples counselling, it really can be at any time when two partners have maybe some level of tension or they foresee some level of potential tension in the future within the relationship that they're in. Or maybe there's simply something that they want to work through with the other person and don't quite know how to go about doing that. So one of the areas might be communication problems, where partners may struggle to express their needs and feelings effectively, or may frequently be misunderstanding something about what the other person is saying. There might be things like infidelity, so dealing with the aftermath of an affair and the process of trying to rebuild that trust again afterwards. Might be financial stresses where different attitudes exist towards money, and that can place strain on a relationship. There may be intimacy issues, and that can be both physical and emotional. And again, that can create tensions within the relationship as well. There could be life transitions that take place, such as becoming a parent, and that can really have the effect of just shifting the dynamics within the relationship between two people. And then that might lead to parenting issues more generally, where partners may have different perspectives on children, either wanting to have them or not wanting to have them, or differences in parenting styles. It could also involve counselling between two people where they're considering embarking on a relationship. And an example of that might be something like pre-marriage counselling, where people receive counselling before they get married, just so they can work through a variety of different things. But again, it could be things like communication skills, conflict resolution skills, exploring expectations, looking at financial planning, family dynamics, intimacy issues, values, beliefs, and the subject of children. They might all be things that would come into those types of sessions. Or it may be that a decision has been made to bring a relationship to an end, but they want to do it in the most amicable way possible. And that might be around children and wanting that separation to be done in as a child-focused and child-centered way as possible. So the scope as to what people can work on within a couples counselling session can be incredibly broad.
Oh, that's great. Thank you, Ian, for such a broad perspective on all the possibilities that couples can work on. There's lots of choices there. So, as there are so many different things someone might go to a couples counselling for, does also the way that the counsellor works might also be different?
Yeah, and again, that's a really good point. And the answer to that is absolutely yes. There are different couples counsellors with different approaches and will work in slightly different ways. And there are various different therapeutic approaches that couples counsellors can adopt or draw upon. And different approaches can be more or less helpful in different situations sometimes as well. So, for example, if we take the example of cognitive behavioural therapy, CBT, CBT can often find its way into couples counselling sessions, and it can focus on identifying and changing negative thought patterns and behaviours. So in CBT for couples, therapists help partners to recognise destructive thoughts, how those thoughts may be influencing the interactions that both partners have with one another. And the therapy aims to look at managing, replacing the negative patterns with more constructive and more positive ones. Couples can learn very practical skills for managing conflict, so improving communication, fostering healthier ways of thinking about the relationship. So identifying and challenging negative thoughts, developing problem-solving skills, practicing new behaviours, and then there might be work that gets done between sessions as well to reinforce that work. Then there are other approaches like EFT, which stands for emotionally focused therapy. So EFT is designed to help couples really to strengthen that emotional bond, and it focuses on the emotional responses and the interactions between partners. So the therapy is based on the idea that emotions are fundamentally key to identity and relationships, and it aims to create secure attachment styles, secure attachments between partners, by helping them to express their needs and their feelings in a more open way, really trying to improve understanding between the partners. And therapy typically progresses through 3 primary stages, which is about de-escalating negative cycles, restructuring interactions, and consolidating change. Then we have things like the Gottman method, which was developed by Doctors John and Julie Gottman. And the method has been around for a long time, for 40 years or so. Lots and lots of research been done into this, and it really focuses on building relationship skills, creating shared meaning, and it uses really practical techniques to help couples manage conflict, build friendships, support the aspirations and the dreams of the other person. And it really emphasizes the importance of positive perspectives, mutual respect, and appreciation in maintaining a healthy relationship. Things like imago relationship therapy, which was developed by Harville Hendricks and Helen LaKelly Hunt. And it really just focuses on transforming conflict into healing and growth. And it combines various different behavioral techniques with emotional understanding to better help understanding of the feelings of the individual. And that just helps a better sense of connection between both partners. And then you can get things like psychosexual counselling, which is often known as sex therapy, and it addresses sexual issues within a relationship. And that type of therapy is very much designed to help couples to deal with things like sexual dysfunction, intimacy issues, other concerns relating to sexual health and sexual satisfaction more generally. So the goal is to improve that sexual communication, resolve sexual problems that may exist, and just enhance that sexual intimacy that's that may be lacking in the relationship. So by employing various different therapeutic approaches, couples counsellors can often tailor their methods to the really unique needs and the dynamics of each relationship. And it just offers a much more comprehensive level of support, which can help enhance both emotional and sexual intimacy within a relationship.
Okay, and that's really fascinating. Thank you for such a comprehensive guide on the various typical different ways that you can actually access couples counselling. That's really fascinating. And I'm just wondering, with all those different approaches and all the different reasons why people may go to a couples counsellor, is there such a thing such as a typical session? And if so, what might that look like?
Yeah, and that's a really, really important question. And lots of people, especially if they haven't engaged in any form of counselling previously, can feel really quite nervous and quite overwhelmed at the thought of going to a counsellor. So understanding the structure of a session can just help to demystify the process and make it feel less intimidating. So let's take a moment just to break that down a little bit.
Okay.
So each couple's counselling session can vary depending on the therapist's approach and the specific needs of the couple. But generally, there are some common elements that we might expect to see there. So firstly, we'll talk about that initial assessment. So the counsellor or the therapist will typically start with an initial assessment during the first session. And that's a really important stage in the process where the counsellor gathers information about the couple's relationship history, the issues they're facing, and the goals that they have for the counselling process that they're going through. So both partners will have an opportunity to share their perspectives, and the therapist will ask questions to just try to understand the dynamics of the relationship. And the session helps establish a baseline and sets the direction for future sessions, essentially. And it's important to remember that the goals that are looked at are the client's goals. The role of a couples counsellor is simply to help people focus on them and start moving towards whatever the clients decide.
Okay.
So moving on, we have the goal setting phase of the counselling endeavour. So, and that's really very much based on the initial assessment. So the counsellor will work with the couple to set specific, measurable and attainable goals for the counselling that's going to be engaged with. And those goals might be including things like improving communication skills or resolving a particular conflict or rebuilding trust or enhancing intimacy. So having clear goals just helps the couples stay focused and provides a way to measure progress.
Okay, thank you, Ian. That's really, really helpful. A very interesting perspective on couples counselling. You mentioned earlier that different therapeutic interventions can be used. Could you just tell us a little bit more about what you mean by that?
Sure. So once the counsellor understands the goals, the counsellor then uses various different therapeutic interventions tailored to the couple's needs in subsequent sessions. So that can involve, as I say, things like communication exercises, conflict resolution strategies, exploring underlying emotional issues that may exist, and techniques from different therapeutic approaches, such as cognitive behavioral therapy, emotion-focused therapy, psychosexual approaches, the Gottman method that I mentioned earlier. They will potentially be drawing on one or a number of different things from those different approaches. So, for example, the counsellor might guide the couple through some sort of role-playing exercise to practice communication skills that they've looked at and learned within the session, or help them identify and start to challenge negative thought patterns that might be affecting the relationship. And another really important part is the progress review to monitor that ongoing progress. So the therapist or the counsellor reviews the progress with the couple on a regular basis. And that involves just reflecting on what's been achieved, discussing any ongoing challenges, and adjusting goals and strategies as needed. And that step is really, really important for just making sure that the counselling remains effective, remains focused, and responsive to the evolving needs of the couple. Couples might also expect there to be opportunities to practice things between the sessions as well. So do something in a session and then go away at the end of that and practice. So many counsellors will assign some sort of practical work between sessions where they can practice new skills, new concepts, and those assignments might include very specific things like communication exercises, journaling, reading articles on different subjects, reading books on different subjects, or engaging in activities designed to strengthen the bonds between both people within that relationship. And that sort of work can just help to reinforce what's learned in the sessions themselves, and encourages couples to really start to learn to integrate these skills into their daily lives.
Yeah, again, very interesting insight into all the possibilities that couples counselling can bring, and the enrichment of the process sounds really, really inspiring. And I'm just imagining that some of the things discussed in couples counselling, I would have thought to the couples could be really challenging to talk about. Can you tell us a bit more about that, Ian?
And I think with any counselling, there can be challenging things that need to be discussed. And the role of the counsellor is very much to take things at an appropriate pace so the client doesn't feel overwhelmed. And when we're doing couples work, the client will be both both people within the relationship. And a really important part is the element that we refer to as safe space for expression. So throughout the sessions, the counsellor creates a safe and non-judgmental environment where both partners can express thoughts and feelings in a really open way. And the counsellor is there to facilitate that discussion in a respectful and constructive way, ensuring that both partners feel heard and feel understood. And that safe space is absolutely vital for building trust and just fostering honest communication between both members of that couple. And then there's what we might think of as a wrap up at the end of the session, and the therapist would typically just summarize what was discussed, highlight any key takeaways, maybe discuss any concerns, outline anything to practice between sessions, and that wrap up just helps ensure clarity and just provides a sense of closure for each session.
Okay, thank you, Ian. That was a really clear overview. Thank you so much for that. And I'm just wondering, are there any particular misconceptions out there about couples counselling? And if there are, can you try and address a few of them, do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. So there are various different things that we hear clients or potential clients say on quite a regular basis. So misconceptions that can often cause unnecessary barriers to clients seeking help. So the encouragement would always be just reach out and talk to somebody, and to be really open and honest about what those concerns are, just to try to work through some of those concerns. But one of the most prevalent misconceptions that we certainly hear about in couples work is that couples counselling is only for relationships that are in crisis. Many people believe that you only go to counselling when there's something really, really bad, or when you're on the brink of some sort of relationship breakup. In reality, couples counselling can be beneficial at any stage of a relationship, whether you're facing a serious issue or just wanting to strengthen the bond between both partners. It's a really, really proactive way to enhance the relationship, improve communication, address minor issues before they become something more major. I mentioned earlier that we often work with people who want to engage in things like pre-marriage counselling, for example. So it's not necessarily that there's a huge issue. It's often more of a sort of preemptive exploration of what both people see a relationship looking like, and just looks at how those different perspectives can become slightly more aligned with each other. Another common misconception is that couples counselling is a sign of failure in some way. And some people think that just the very act of needing a therapist or a counsellor means that you failed in the relationship in some way. Whereas seeking help is actually a sign of strength, is a sign of commitment to the relationship. It shows that you're willing to work on the relationship and invest in its future. Just like you might go to a doctor for a health checkup, you might go to a counsellor to just try to align ideas and to work through minor things. Another thing is a lot of couples worry that the therapist will take sides. And that can be a really big concern for people, especially if one partner feels maybe more responsible for the issue that they're there to discuss. And it's really important to understand that a good couples counsellor remains neutral. They're not there to judge, they're not there to blame, not there to judge or blame either partner. Instead, they're there to facilitate understanding and communication, helping both partners see things from the other's perspective and to work towards some sort of shared solution. Some people will say counselling will involve lots and lots of talking, but no real action. And whereas open communication can be a really important part of the process, effective couples counselling work often involves really practical tools, really practical strategies. So counsellors provide really actionable steps, really actionable exercises to help couples apply what they've learned in session to their everyday life. And that can include communication, conflict resolution techniques, and then the work that gets done between the session that reinforces what you've learned in the sessions as well. Other misconceptions might be that it's just going to be a really quick fix. So some couples expect immediate results, and they can become discouraged if they don't see really quick improvements. And as with one-to-one counselling, it's really important to remember that change takes time sometimes, and the process can require patience, can require commitment from both partners, and progress can happen at different paces, at different rates, for different people working on different issues with different needs. So for some, progress might be more gradual, but with consistent effort, couples can often achieve really lasting improvements in their relationship. And I think it's really, really important that remember that there can be really positive outcomes from this type of work. Sometimes people will feel that only one person within the relationship needs to change. And in reality, both partners usually need to make some sort of adjustment and take some level of responsibility for their part in the relationship dynamics that exist. So couples counselling helps both individuals to identify areas of growth, develop better ways of interacting with one another. And lastly, because I'm conscious I'm talking a lot, there's a misconception that couples counselling might drag up the past and just make things worse. And whilst it's true that therapy, that counselling may involve discussing past events, the goal is to understand how those issues affect the present and to find ways to heal and to move forward. So counselling provides a safe space to address unresolved issues in a constructive manner, leading to healing and strengthening in the bond between both people. So in summary, couples counselling isn't just for crisis, it's a sign of strength, it's not a sign of failure. And a good couples counsellor will remain neutral, and the process involves both communication and practical actions as well.
Okay, Ian, again, very comprehensive and sounds much more proactive for people to actually engage in couples counselling, especially not to wait until, there is a crisis there. So I'm just wondering if people have listened to this podcast and are considering professional help, how should they go about the process?
So organisations like Hope Therapy and Counselling Services, we regularly work with people with a whole variety of different relationship challenges. We have a whole relationship team with different areas of specialism, and that might cover any of the issues that we've talked about today: communication issues, conflict resolution, trust, fidelity, intimacy, connection, life transition, stress, a whole variety of different things. And people are very welcome to take a look at our website. We have a whole variety of free resources on there, as well as details of a really experienced team of counsellors that are available. www.hopefulminds.co.uk. Just go to the service section and look at relationships, and you'll see lots and lots of details there. People are very welcome to book in for a free consultation with us, and we're very happy to go through things in a little bit more detail with them. And then, of course, you too, Wendy, a hugely experienced CBT therapist. You've worked with numerous relationship challenges over the years, so maybe you can just tell people a little bit about you and what you have to offer as well.
Yes, certainly. And as I said, I'm an accredited CBT therapist. I also work a lot with compassion, which can be a very useful skill in working in couples counselling. So the best way to contact me is via my website, which is wendycastellino.com. And you can see how to spell my name in the notes. But yeah, and there's an email. You can send me an email there, or you can just Google me, and my details will come up. So Ian, thank you so much for such a comprehensive guide to couples counselling, and I hope it does encourage people to really consider, investing in their relationship, because it's one of the most important things to us, isn't it? And actually getting that right is
That's
really important, isn't it? So yeah, hopefully you encourage people to take those first steps. So thank you so much, Ian.
And thank you to you too, Wendy, and look forward to the next podcast very shortly.
Yes, and thank you everybody for listening.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.